Welcome to Forward Progress on the Hammer Betting Network. On this Tuesday, November 14th, we've got an action-packed show. We'll discuss the Monday Night Football game, including the shit show disaster that the Buffalo Bills are. We'll also discuss our approach to the bottom feeders potentially tanking and how to handle overinflated lines, plus a preview of this Thursday Night Football game, which is sure to be a banger. Just a reminder, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell so you don't miss any of the content. And please just smash the like button, show some love to the creators. It helps boost us in the algorithm. Of course, none of this would be possible without our sponsor, Pinnacle. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sports book and available to bettors in Ontario. Find out what the pros have known for the last 25 years. 25 years of competitive odds. Your trusted sports book. Bet smart, bet Pinnacle. Must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly. With that being said, I'm your host, George Tsilfidis, and I'm excited on Tuesdays. I'm joined by SharpClarke, NFL originator, betting analyst at 444.com. Clark, how are you today?
Good. Thanks, George. Looking forward to this.
I guess the only thing I'm left thinking of today is why on earth would the Bills do this? You make a scapegoat of and fire Ken Dorsey. I'm stunned by the news, Clark. How did you react?
Yeah, I'm pretty frustrated because this is just evidence of how results focused the league can be, and teams and fans and media and everybody. That there was nothing fundamentally wrong with the offense that was preventing them from being a winning team. I mean, my question for you, George, is if 11 men line up on the field for that field goal, does Ken Dorsey have a job this morning?
Yes, and that's what's sad. And it's not his job. It's McDermott's job. He's the head coach. He's the defensive coordinator. The blame should lie like squarely at his feet.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a scapegoat move. It's a, we need to do something to appease the angry fans, etc. Sean McDermott is probably losing his grip on the job. I mean, they're not getting rid of Josh Allen. They brought in, who did they bring in? Was it Joe Brady? Who's the new offensive coordinator?
Yeah, he was the quarterback's coach from Carolina's old offensive coordinator.
Yeah, he's not fixing things. The defense is a problem. He's not going to be able to turn the defense around without all those guys that are injured. I mean, I think it can be better than it has been, but this is a tough situation for the Bills, and I don't think that firing Ken Dorsey was the answer.
I'd like to hear from people watching the stream, the chat. What did you think of the firing? I'm going to tell you something, Clark. It kind of worked. I'm in a group chat with two buddies who are Bills fans, and we started to discuss this, and they just kept saying, something had to happen. And I'm like, yeah, the Bills were, third in EPA per play. They're the number one team in success rate, seventh in scoring drive rate. They were the number one team in offensive success rate yesterday. The offensive coordinator doesn't call fumbles and interceptions, and this team is way too turnover happy. I'm like, why on earth is this the thing that's going to solve anything?
Yeah, I don't. And the thing about it is their offense has been good, right? I a little bit about my process, but I watch and grade every snap of every game, and I compare performance and I try to focus on the predictive measurements. The Bills have been the better team by my metrics in every game except one this season, and that game was the Patriots game, funnily enough. So the Bills have been playing well. They've been moving the ball effectively, but the problem is, like you said, they have the lowest fumble recovery rate on offense in the league. They have a bunch of costly turnovers at bad times, tipped interceptions. They move the ball really, really well, and then they suddenly stall out in key spots. And those types of things don't tend to be predictive. So what we could see here is some of those sort of more luck-based things revert to the mean. And then whoever, Joe Brady gets credit for like turning the Bills around when really it was just always a good team that suddenly had variance go their way. And if they win games down the stretch, it has nothing to do with the firing of Ken Dorsey. It's just going to be a good team winning games like they should be.
Yeah. Tony S says wide receivers tipping balls to DBs for easy interceptions. OC's fault. I agree, Tony. Like if you listed the reasons the Bills lost yesterday, Dorsey's like not even a top 10 reason why they lost yesterday. Eric says, I do think their game plan has to change a little bit. It needs to be said. I talked with Dr. Jesse Morse last week who said, listen, Josh Allen is still dealing with the shoulder injury. The designed runs are all the way down. He was averaging over 4 designed runs per game the last 3 years. He's under 2 this year. The deep ball's gone. Like, part of the dynamic of the Bills offense was Stephon Diggs could cook you for 70 yards on any given play. Now, all of a sudden, when all that stuff's gone, everything's more compressed and the defense plays in a box. Clearly, he's still lingering. Like, he's on the injury report every practice, Wednesday, Thursday. So there's something still there. But do you think they need to make a drastic change to how they play offense, or you think it's just simple regression, turnover regression, and they'll be fine?
I mean, I think their hands are a little bit tied because they did make a drastic change to the offense when they drafted a tight end and had the intention to go into much more, 12 football.
Mm.
And then Dawson Knox is hurt. He can't play. So now they've had to transition back to the 3 wide stuff. And, you don't want to put too much stock in a tight end injury because obviously you should be good enough as an offense to overcome a tight end injury. But in terms of adjustments, I think they're kind of trapped by the personnel that they have into doing what they're doing. And this is kind of a broader point about the NFL as a whole. Like the way defenses are playing is making it much harder for elite playmaking quarterbacks to have the type of impact on a game that they've had in prior years. We've seen, declines in efficiency from Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, all these guys that have traditionally been really, really, key to offensive success. If you don't have a run game and a power run game to force defenses out of those looks, then you're kind of just playing less efficiently. And that's what's happening with Buffalo right now. And they tried their plan B and now they can't do their plan B. So they're just kind of, scrambling from now.
I'm curious of how it's going to look. Any questions not pertaining to what we're talking about, we'll get to it maybe later in the show, but we're going to start all the comments. Dan's got a great one that I want to get to after. Let's talk about the market and how they're valuing the Bills. The Bills get money every single game day, Clark. The line steams. It happened against Cincy. It steamed to down to a 1. Against Bucks, it steamed to 10. Yesterday, it steamed to 7.5, 8 in some places. They haven't covered since the Miami game. It's been 6 weeks in a row. They have not covered the closing number. Is the market not properly accounting for the offense and Josh Allen's injury, or B, the defense just not being good anymore?
No, I mean, I think outside of the Bengals game, I think the lines have been pretty tight. Like the types of variance that happens, that was a game that probably the Bills win by about 7 on average based on their, repeatable metrics. It was just a lot of turnover luck and things like that. Against the Bucks, they were dominating that game. There was like a late surge to cover the spread. It's been stuff like that I don't think has been really predictive. The Bengals game, I think, was more about a mispricing of the Bengals than I think the Bills in that game. So no, I don't think the market's wrong on the Bills. I think that's correct. It's just sometimes variance happens, and 6 games might sound like a lot and be like, oh, the market must be wrong. But no, in this case, I think it's just variance.
Maybe don't fire personnel off a small sample size. Let's talk about Denver. I want to give them some credit. Their defense isn't the defense that got pumped for 70 against Miami. 9 turnovers the past 2 weeks against Mahomes and Allen. Like, you're living pretty good if you're doing that to 2 of the 3 best quarterbacks in football. The defense is much improved, right, Clark?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, getting healthy was huge.
What about the offense, though? I see an offense that coach is scared. 4 turnovers and they put up 6 points, and I'm just sitting there bashing my head with a Denver ticket, and I'm like, why are we not capitalizing on any of this? All the plays were like short of the sticks. Like, Peyton didn't want to trust Russ until he had to. What do you make of this Denver offense?
Yeah, I'm still not really that bullish on the Denver offense. Like the 1 touchdown they got in the first half was kind of a miracle play. Like, and Russell Wilson does that. Like, he's done that throughout his career, but it's just not the type of stuff you can rely on. They're not consistently moving the ball downfield. There's too many penalties. There's too many, losses, whether it's sacks or runs. It's not an offense, especially against this Bills defense. Like, it wasn't an offense that impressed me. They had opportunities to really make that a one-sided game, and they just kept failing to capitalize.
Is like when you see a team like Denver basically get outplayed 2 games in a row, but beat the Chiefs and the Bills, do you think there's an opportunity to fade them because of people's romanticizing their most recent results despite the metrics, or you don't think in terms of that?
In theory, I don't think in terms of that. I don't bet based on that. But sometimes that can, like, it, if my numbers show value relative to market, sometimes I can sort of be like, okay, I understand why people are excited about the Broncos. But, I think most bettors probably weight more recent results more highly because, teams evolve over the course of the season. And so especially with a team that got healthy, like, you have to upgrade their defense better than what their season-long metrics have been. So I think some of that's justified. And so, in a lot of cases like this, my numbers just kind of capture what the market's saying. When the market goes too far, then I think there's value here. I don't think anyone's really giving the Broncos that much credit. Like, I don't think people are being like, oh, Broncos are 4-5, maybe they make the playoffs now. Like, I think people still kind of view them as a mediocre team, and that's how they're being priced in the market.
Well, there is one team that was like the number screamed wrong, and it got corrected pretty quickly Monday morning, and we'll get into that based on recent market sentiment and maybe thinking of a quarterback in an MVP light. But let's go to film review, Clark. This is what I like to do. I was on the Packers side of this game. I was against a bunch of people who work for Forward Progress who were on the Steelers, and I was so sour about the loss. I let them know several times on Sunday how they're I don't want to hear their bad beat complaints for a while because I don't think they should have got the ticket to the window. But I'd like to hear your film review of the game.
Yeah, full disclosure, I was on the Steelers too, so I felt very fortunate to get the cover. I came away impressed with the Packers offense in particular, Jordan Love in particular. I thought Jordan Love outplayed Kenny Pickett in this game. I thought the Steelers outplayed the Packers, and I think the Steelers deserved to win, but it was a lot tighter than I was expecting coming in, especially playing in Pittsburgh. I expected the Steelers defensive line to get to Jordan Love. Like, his play this season has been entirely dependent on having clean pockets. And they had a clean pocket pretty much all day against a very good pass rush featuring TJ Watt and Cam Hayward. And what they were doing downfield really impressed me, right? So you've got multiple routes running downfield, trying to split the safeties. And when Jordan Love has time for those plays to develop, like, he can hit those throws. He's got the confidence. Like, he's a gunslinger. He throws the ball with confidence. Like, you look at an offense like the Jets and how stagnant it is with Zach Wilson. It's like he's hesitating on every throw. And what you need is someone who's decisive. Even if they're going to make mistakes, you need them to be decisive. And I think that can open up the offense. It allows the run game to thrive because you're actually pushing the defense further away from the line of scrimmage. And they did that against the Steelers. So they were picking up, 5, 6, 7 yards on the ground, setting up those pass plays. And, they almost came back and won. And I think I'm seeing a young team develop each week, getting a little bit better. What I wanted to see was a performance where they put it together, and I think they did here. They've got their receivers are all young, right? Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Luke Musgrave, tight end, Ricks, and Jaden Reed, right? So every receiver is young, and we know that it takes a while as a pass catcher to transition to the NFL. So the expectation that they might improve over the course of the year, I think, is justified. And what I wanted to see was them handle a decent defense in a tough environment and do it well. And I think I saw that in this game. On the other side, the reason I say the Steelers were better was because it was just so much easier for them on offense. Like, they ran the ball much more easily, much more explosive plays in the run game. I think in some ways the Packers were a little bit fortunate to be in the position where that, sort of lateral might have swung the game.
Yeah.
But when I judge results, things like that, I don't really put, it's unlucky in the sense that, like, a different call leads to a different result. But it wasn't like something that the Packers defense was doing that was so good that forced a mistake by the Steelers. Like, it was just a weird, like you're throwing it to your receiver on a wide receiver screen, and you might have thrown it backwards, maybe you threw it lateral. I don't know. So I don't really take away that, like, the Packers defense was great. I think the Packers defense just wasn't that great in this game. So takeaways are, I was impressed with Jordan Love. I think the way that LaFleur is scheming up this offense is unlocking some of the things that he does well. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that fares down the stretch, because I think he has a chance to, be the starter next year if he finishes the season well. Like, they knew this was a building year. And I think that was one game that I think shows well on the tape, and they're going to need to put some other games on the table with, I think, 3 tough matchups coming up. But I think they can, especially if they win one of those.
They, post bye, entire offense healthy. Just when you thought, maybe we're done with Jordan Love, he shows enough to say, okay, there's something there. Let's see if he can, because oftentimes consistency is really what makes a good quarterback. Everyone can flash and has moments, but can you consistently do it? And I'd like to see it in the follow-up this week. I think the thing that stood out more than anything was the Steelers O-line just blew the Packers off the ball. Like, it was like they were getting 5, 6, 8, 10-yard chunks, both Najee and Jalen Morton. I'm like, this is incredible. I bet the under in the game. So that's the real dumb bet that I made in the game. And I was surprised how bad this Packers defense was. I know they were missing Quay Walker and Jair Alexander, but maybe I got to stop thinking about Green Bay as an under team after that performance. And I definitely am not thinking of them as that against the Chargers. Any other points on that cleanup before we get into the next game?
No, I totally agree on your read. The Steelers' offensive line was probably the best unit in that game.
Yeah. Falcons Cardinals, I thought was a really, really fun game to watch. I guess I want to start with the Cardinals. More than anything, Kyler's escapability avoiding sacks like changes the entire dynamic of field position. Like sacks are drive killers, right? You eat a sack and you lose 9 yards. Now you've got 2 downs to get 19. You're in trouble. Like he escaped 4 such plays. Even if they weren't positives, just eliminating the true negatives, the stuff that really kills a drive, I think is so underrated. Like the other thing that like popped off at me was Trey McBride. He's not just like a good pass catcher. He's legitimately was dominating in the run game as a blocker. I like Jonathan Gannon. 4th down gamble from his own 30. First quarter, like plus EV coaching decisions. If you can steal drives like that and continue drives, you're going to be a good team. I also like the way they use the skill set of the guys. Like you could tell Gannon has been waiting for Murray because a lot of their receivers are like they're doing crossers, using their speed. They're not forcing Murray to get to his 3rd read because they're giving him high-low options on his 1st read. And it really, really paid dividends. The Cardinals, they had a chance to blow this game open, but like they took a lot of really dumb penalties. They also had some really dumb drops and mistakes. Like Hollywood Brown, not that it was a drop, but Murray just overthrew him a tad. Otherwise, that's 6, and we're looking at a whole other game. Trey McBride also bailed them out too, and that underthrown ball on that last drive, incredible catch, right? Like to come back and get it. I did have a couple observations about Atlanta though. 2-to-1 run to pass ratio, and it's like I don't know, man. What the hell are they doing? And like Bijan seems to be the only guy that's capable of explosives in this offense, which when you have to like trickle the ball down the field 5-6 yards at a time, it makes it very difficult to be a good offense. 12 plays of offense, eventually you're going to make a mistake, and that mistake might be a holding that kills a drive, or a drop pass or an interception. If you don't have the ability to bust one open for a big play, I think it limits what you do offensively. And then the last drive where they got a touchdown, they had 1 completed pass. Desmond Ridder threw it to the wrong shoulder to Drake London, who made like an insane catch. So I don't know how to evaluate this Atlanta pass game moving forward. I think they're going to go with Ridder out of the bye again. But man, I was like, Cardinals have been a bad defense. That was a poor showing by Atlanta's offense. I don't think they did a good enough job last week.
Yeah, I definitely think they go back to Ridder. It was remarkable how much more aggressive Ridder was once he got out there. Like they don't trust Heineke. They haven't trusted. We talked about this last week, right? Like their game-winning drive was run. Like they don't trust Heineke, and when he has had to pass, he just hasn't been consistent. He hasn't seen the field very well. And I think when Ridder got in there, it was like he was throwing downfield with aggressiveness. He's not that accurate. He doesn't always make the right throw. But I think it just gave the offense a little bit of life, especially throwing to Drake London. I don't know where Drake London was all day. Taylor Heineke wasn't even looking his way. But I think that's what they need. They need to get back to that. Like, yes, Ritter's going to make some mistakes, and those mistakes are going to cost them. But how much better is the entire offense when you're using the entire field? Ritter's also, like, Heineke's a pretty mobile quarterback, but Ridder just seems better at picking his spots, like when to actually take it outside, when to try to run for the first down, things like that. He makes good decisions out of structure. Again, his accuracy is a problem. His consistency is a problem. And then I agree with you on all the stuff with Arizona. Trey McBride actually made 2 incredible catches. There was one on the sidelines that I think was on 3rd down to get the first. That was ridiculous. But Kyler Murray is just so inconsistent. Like we saw this throughout his career. He's been the kind of player that has these miracle long 3rd down conversions or even 4th down conversions, interspersed with absolutely dumb mistakes and tons of penalties. I kind of used to blame the penalties a little bit on Cliff Kingsbury, but with Murray back in there, it was just the same. It was the same false starts, holding penalties, things like that. And I worry, the thing with Murray is if he converts on those low percentage plays, he looks great. And people, oh, Kyler Murray's so good. He's like a, top 10 quarterback. And then he doesn't convert in them. And then all of a sudden he sucks. Like, this is the results oriented, way we look at the league. So I'm kind of looking to fade, the overreactions to Murray's good games and bad games, because he's just a high variance player.
11 penalties for 112 yards to 4 from the Falcons. And you're not going to win many games when you have a minus 80 yard differential in penalties. Before we get into the question from people in the chat, smash the like button. And if you have any questions at any time, just shoot them and we'll answer them on the stream. Dan Rivera wants to know, before I get too deep into cardio, why is the Jags offense lackluster or perceived to be lackluster? Why aren't they better? They're not as good as they should be. Is that weird to say? Like, this should be a good offense, at least league average. They're 23rd in EPA per play. Clark, they're like a bottom 5 red zone offense. Why aren't they better than they should be?
Well, I think EPA per play is a little skewed by, negative, like you said, red zone, bad performance in the red zone and turnovers. I think they are a pretty good offense, but they need to get Calvin Ridley going. Like, this was my key for them. Like, they can enter the AFC conversation if they get Calvin Ridley going, and they've got both Ridley and Kirk. We've seen all these quarterbacks take that step when they get that alpha dog, wide receiver on their team. And I expected that to happen, and it just hasn't. It's gotten worse. Like, he's gotten less and less visible, less and less impactful each week. I'm not taking too much out of that 49ers game. I mean, they got absolutely smothered by angry and very, very good defense. You'd like to see more competitiveness, but also there was a fumble like deep in San Francisco territory. There was interception. Those kinds of things happen that make a score that probably should have been a 10 to 14 point game turn into massive blowout. But I mean, they need Calvin Ridley, in my opinion. They need Ridley, they need Kirk, and they need ETN all contributing. Right now, they've only got 2 of the 3, and it's not good enough.
Yeah, I also think they're missing Zay Jones. I think he gave them an element in the red zone that they don't have right now, and I think they're badly missing him. Let's talk about bad teams tanking, the inflation of lines. We get to a point in the season, Clark, where now it's like, okay, the season is lost, optimism is gone. Do we have a franchise quarterback or not? If not, is there one available in the draft? This year, it looks like there's at least 2. And then it becomes, how motivated are they at winning? And like, now you got to start factoring in how secure is the coach? Is he willing to lose some games because he has some time? Is this a coach that has no options? He's not going to tank so that the next coach gets the quarterback of the future. Let's pull up. I want to pull up the chances of getting the first overall pick, because we're going to talk about 4 teams specifically. So the Bears, that pick is coming via the Carolina Panthers. I want to talk about them. The Giants with a 38.4% chance, New England with a 4.8% chance, and the Cardinals with a 12% chance. Let's start off with Carolina. They don't own their pick, so there's no accusations of tanking. They've just shown no improvement, Clark. Like, defensively, they've looked pretty good the last 3 weeks. So I'll give them, like, they came out of the bye. They didn't fix their offense. They fixed their defense. But like, offensively, there's no growth. Bryce Young doesn't look like he's getting better. Not only like that Colts game where he had 3 picks. You watch the Bears, who have been, every offense that has played them has done really well. He had 1 wow throw, just 1. And I'm like, that's it. That's all you're flashing. Usually they'll flash. When Lawrence was bad in his rookie year, he flashed 4 or 5 plays a game and then mixed in with a lot of bad. Bryce Young is showing 1 play a game that you could say, okay, maybe. What is what's your evaluation of Carolina moving forward? Are you projecting any growth, or are you just treating this team as a really bad team?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, their defense has been playing much better, so they have improved in that front. But their offense coming out of the bye and switching to a different offense coordinator has been downhill, like progressively worse each game. And that's not something that I think they can fix. They don't have the weapons to fix it. They don't have the offensive line to fix it. They don't have the quarterback to fix it. So it's kind of like, where is this growth going to come from? The question for us as bettors is, at what point does the market, undervalue a team that is this bad, right? Like, how many points is too many points in some of these matchups? And that's a tough question. I generally, and this applies to pretty much all these teams we're going to discuss, I generally never play like, oh, I'm betting against this team because they're tanking. I don't think the players tank. I don't think coaches tank. I don't think there's any evidence of that. There might be some fringe cases where there are exceptions and should always be aware of those. But in those cases, even then, it's hands off for me. I'm not betting against them.
Sure.
So I'm more likely to find value on teams where everyone has given up. Like fans think in terms of, oh, we need the number one pick. Players don't think that way, and especially when they don't have the number one pick coming up. So yeah, this is a Carolina team that I think has an opportunity to show signs of life, like because of how bad their offense has been the last 3 weeks. It's also been, you brought up Trevor Lawrence. A lot of that came in game script scenarios where games were getting out of hand fast. These have been competitive games, and Bryce Young's been unable to do anything in those competitive games. So it's more problematic. But I do think that there's, Bryce Young can obviously throw the ball. He's a number one overall pick. Like he knows how to play the quarterback position. He just needs to make consistently good decisions, avoid those big mistakes, and, lean on Adam Thielen, I guess. They should get DJ Chark back soon, which should help as well. Because, a lack of receivers is the team's biggest problem. But I'm looking to maybe find a spot in the future to bet on them. But I'm not going to be overly aggressive about it. I'm not betting them this week.
No, I make it Dallas 10.5. So I'm like right in line with current price. So I'm not interested. We're going to veer off quickly. Just 2 questions. Cottage says they're mad at Lovie Smith for not tanking and they landed CJ Stroud. I'm going to tell you something. Lovie Smith actually really did Houston a favor because if they sat at 1 and took Bryce Young, they would not be having all this optimism. They wouldn't have CJ Stroud more than likely. So Lovie Smith secretly helped Houston by getting out of their way and not forcing them into taking Bryce Young. Like incredible how the fortunes change. Joey asks, why aren't the Titans any better than they are? For myself, Joey, I wasn't high on their O-line to begin with. So for myself, I'm not as shocked by the results. Clark, do you have any are you surprised by how the Titans are playing, or do you think they're in line with what expectations should be?
The offense is in line with what I expected. We knew they weren't going to be very good this year, but I've been disappointed in their defense. Granted, they traded away Kevin Byard and they've had some injuries in the secondary, but their defensive front should be, like on paper, should be good enough to really win some games. And I feel like it's just been every week, it's like they're just not quite getting to the quarterback. They're just not quite getting the run stuffs at the line. It's like a few more yards than it should be. So yeah, I think the defense has been underperforming, and I'm not sure what the catalyst would be for that to improve.
All right, let's get back to the New York Giants. They own their own pick. Their O-line and now secondary is decimated. The coach has plenty of job security, right? You win Coach of the Year. It's very rare you're going to get fired the next year, especially when you're married to the GM. The both of you came from the Bills organization. I can't get this line higher than Washington 8.25. We're paying a tax, and it's called the Tommy DeVito tax. Like I make the Giants the worst power-rated team I've seen in 5 years, but I still can't get to this number. The problem is, Clark, no one wants to bet the Giants. I don't even want to bet them at 10, even though my number says I'm supposed to. Like, I think I would need maybe 12.5, 13 for me to start wrapping my head around this. How do you adjust when there's an inflation that doesn't line up with your numbers, and yet you're still not interested in the team that's showing value?
Yeah, the advantage to being a bettor is you don't have to bet every game, right? If your numbers show value and you don't have the stomach for it, then it's fine to not play it, Actually, my go-to move is like, I'll bet it for just like, a very, very small amount compared to my other bets, just so I've got it on my record. Like, hey, my model says bet this. No, I think that it's a little bit overblown. It's still an NFL team. Like their offensive line isn't in the best shape, but it's not been in good shape all year, and it might be in better shape now than it has been in a lot of weeks.
It wasn't even in good shape when they lost to Washington. When they beat Washington a couple weeks ago. So right. And Washington's now laying 10.
Yeah, but the result in Dallas is a little bit skewed. Like they came out, first offensive play was on their own, half-yard line because the Cowboys had failed on a 4th down at the goal line. They don't get out of the end zone. Surprise, surprise, right? You're on your own 1-yard line against one of the best defensive fronts in the league, and you have arguably the worst quarterback in the league and a bad offensive line. Of course they don't go anywhere. Next drive, I think they start on their own 5. Same kind of thing. I think it takes a sack on 3rd down to like the 2. They punt it away. By the time they actually have a real possession, like the game is, well advanced. and they actually got a first down on that next possession. One first down. Okay, like big whoop. They didn't get another first down for a while, but still, like I think the evidence from that game needs to be taken a little bit lightly. And DeVito also played against the Raiders in a game where the Raiders put up another big score line, and you don't want to lose 30-12, but the offense at least moved a little bit against that defense. And the Washington defense is going to look a lot more like the Raiders defense than the Cowboys defense. So I do think the Giants will be able to move the ball somewhat. My concern for the Giants now is the strength of the team has been the defense, and they traded away Leonard Williams. Kayvon Thibodeau got hurt in that game. I think it might have been a concussion. I'm not sure what the injury was. So if he's out and Leonard Williams is out, like all of a sudden the strength of the team is now no longer a strength. And also like how hard can the defense be playing, right? Like after the last couple of weeks, it's a grind out there. Like players don't tank. They stay motivated. They play. They're professionals, but this is a team that I think has very little going for it and very little reason to expect an upturn. I think this is a team that has a very high chance of getting the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, they'd probably be my betting favorite to get the number 1 overall pick. If DeVito starts the rest of the year, I don't think they're going to. The New England game is the one. That's the one where maybe they can win, and that depends on how motivated they are to tank. Let's move on to New England. They're bad. This is the worst O-line they've had in the Bill Belichick era. It's really, really bad, and it's evident. They don't have enough weapons that can separate. Their secondary is now a mess. J.C. Jackson, they don't even take him overseas. Jack Jones is talented. They cut him. The only thing they do well is stop the run. They play one facet of football well. How do you evaluate New England moving forward? Do you believe that we don't believe in tanking, Clark, right? But the one time that there was a generational talent in the NBA, head coach Greg Popovich, who had basically the cachet to say we can take a year off, does, and they land Wembanyama. I don't know that Caleb Williams is generational. People say he is. You'd figure maybe Bill has enough leeway to maybe take 1 year off in a year that could maybe change the fortunes of the franchise. Probably they might turn it over to Bailey Zappi post-bye. How do you evaluate New England moving forward? Are they a dead team to you?
No, not at all. I question whether Bill Belichick has it in him to tank. Someone who's like that serious about winning for that long, to the idea that he would be like, well, yeah, let's just kind of take it easy, like doesn't really sit right with me. Like I feel like if they were 0-16, he would like fight like hell to win that last game. Maybe that's narrative-y. Maybe I'm like reading too much into it, but I'm not giving up on this team. I think he put Bailey Zappi out there because he thought that was the best chance they had to get a game-winning drive. But I think there's a little bit of overreaction happening here, and this is another results-based take. Like everyone's panicking on the Patriots like they're the worst team ever. Their schedule has been absolutely brutal, and like that game against the Colts was, a quote-unquote must-win. But given the strength of their schedule, they needed to win the games against the teams that aren't perceived to be near the top of the league. But in that game, they moved the ball much better than the Colts did. They got down in the red zone several times. It felt really easy for them to move the ball down the field, and it was just these like incremental plays, these moments where Mac Jones makes a bad decision and it's like all over, and they weren't quite good enough to overcome those mistakes. So I don't think this is a fundamentally bad team. I think this is a team that lacks talent, that has played a brutal schedule and suffered some negative variance in spots. So this is definitely not a team that I'm looking to fade at all costs. This is a team that I think will at least show some life. I don't know when that will be, but at least show some life down the stretch.
So Belichick, the GM, has done a poor job of giving Belichick, the coach, the necessary pieces to win moving forward, right? Do you think that they would have the guts to say, you need to give up the GM duties moving forward, because they've whiffed on like the last 4 drafts? It's the last year's draft, like half the team is gone already. They literally blew every pick. Tyquan Thornton is a bad wide receiver that they took in the second round. Taking an offensive guard in the first round that teams projected in round 3 was a bad decision. Whether you like the player or not, you have to be at least aware of what the market thinks of the guy's value, because you can get him later. He's done a poor job of building the talent on this team, and it's finally, after years, really coming home to roost right now, right?
Yeah, combined with the 2 best moves that I think they've made in the last couple of years were getting Matt Judon on the team and then drafting Christian Gonzalez. And both those guys are out now with injuries for the rest of the year. So it's like you compound bad decisions with bad luck and you get what you get.
All right, let's move on to Arizona, a team that was being accused of tanking, but they are not. I think they think Kyler's their guy. I think they're more interested in that receiver from Ohio State, Marvin Harrison. And I think they're going to be trying to win down the stretch, whether they're good or not or enough. The market didn't factor in, I guess, an improvement in Arizona. Either that or they love Houston a little too much, because that line opened 5.5. I talked to a few people who were like, that is very wrong. And before a lot of people got a chance to bet it, this thing is down to 4 right away. Were you stunned by the line, the initial line, and do you think it's finally in the place it needs to be?
I was a little surprised by the initial line. The movement makes total sense to me. Like, this is, a competitive Cardinals team. And I think the underrated aspect of the Cardinals right now is that their defense has been playing much better. In the last 3 weeks, each of their opponents, the Browns, Ravens, and Falcons, have underperformed expectations by my metrics. And I think that's not a coincidence. I think Budda Baker coming back off IR, the team sort of rallying around having Kyler Murray back, they've been competitive on defense. And so I think that's an underrated element. I don't think CJ Stroud is just going to like waltz all over this defense the way that people, I think, maybe thought right after they beat the Bengals. And I think we've seen that in the line movement, both on the under and the line coming down towards Arizona.
All right, let's get into the rest of the market moves and the line movements. And please drop a like, or if you have questions about a specific game, drop a question in the chat and we'll get to it. Let's start off with, I guess, the Chargers and Packers. The Chargers were over a field goal, and I guess some people liked what they saw in Green Bay and said, no, that Chargers should not be laying over a field goal on the road against anyone with a pulse. The line right now, -3, -107 at Pinnacle. What was your impression, your takeaway of the Chargers game against the Lions? Like, on the one hand, I liked how their offense looked, but I've been like beating the drum that this Lions secondary has not been exposed for what I see on film that hasn't matched up to the stats, and we finally did. But on the other hand, like, the Lions ran power run on 4th and 5 and got it. Like that, if ever there was a you're just not very good and we don't respect your defense, that's what 4th and 5 power run is, right? That's we are better than you, and we know it.
Yeah, the Lions' offensive game plan was a masterclass in every facet. I mean, it was so fun to watch. The Lions-Chargers game was actually a good example of I think something my process captures is that if you look at the kind of drive charts and score, it kind of looked like a back and forth game where both offenses were dominating, couldn't be stopped. It was touchdown, 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 touchdown. Lions get the field goal to win. But my metrics actually graded the Lions offense much better than the Chargers offense in this game. And a lot of that has to do with how easy it was. Like, the Chargers were converting difficult third downs, pinpoint laser passes by Justin Herbert, defensive penalties to convert, things like that. Whereas the Lions, it was like, there's no chance the Chargers have on defense here. Like, every drive was like, yeah, they're going to score a touchdown here. They're going to score. The only question on the final drive was, will the Lions get in field goal range in time, or will it take too long? And sure enough, they got there well in time. So this is a very good Lions offense. The Chargers, I think, have problems on defense. I think they have problems on offense. They're not going to be able to convert all those 4th downs. They had a goal line stand that took 8 plays to get in the end zone. Yeah. Wasn't pretty. So yeah, I think the line move is completely justified. On the road, I think Chargers laying 3 is the perfect spread for this game.
Yeah. If I'm the Chargers ownership, Ben Johnson for sure didn't leave without getting a private meeting about being the future head coach, because why the hell would you ever not want that guy to partner him with Herbert, right? That's a no-brainer. If I'm ownership. Ben Johnson, welcome to Justin Herbert and our offense. Joey Graybeal says, Miami going to win their division, or will the Bills turn this around? Clark, Miami had the best week of anybody, and they didn't even play. The Ravens lost, the Bengals lost, the entire division lost. What do you think? It's Miami's to lose now, given Buffalo's next 4 games are insanely hard?
I think it is Miami's to lose, but the problem is if the Bills play well enough, then I think they can steal it. But the bar for that, how well the Bills have to play down the stretch to take it from Miami, is extremely high. So the Bills have that in them. They have that capability. I wouldn't want to be betting on the Dolphins at current prices because they're heavy favorites, and I just think that the Bills are too dangerous. But I already have Bills division prices from when I thought they were going to be good. I would not add to those either.
All right. Cottage says, did Sharp watch the New Orleans, Minnesota game? It seems that New Orleans figured out Dobbs in the second half. Denver -2 with more Dobbs tape. What was your perception of Minnesota's offense, who didn't do much in the second half?
Unfortunately, I haven't watched it yet. There's 3 games I haven't gotten to yet. It just,
Got it.
you know, when you watch every game, it takes usually until Tuesday or Wednesday. So my apologies, Cottage.
Yeah, no problem. Seattle and the Rams, the line was 2.5. We get the news that Stafford is going to play, and the line swings in some books to the Rams favored by 1. Pinnacle still makes Seattle the favorite. I'm a little surprised that the line swung this far. I'm not as high, I guess, as the market, as the Rams, because I haven't liked how their defense or offense looked recently. Clark, what do you make of the Rams? It's been 3 weeks, and the last time we saw them was against the Cowboys. It's been maybe a month since they looked good. Are you surprised by this line movement?
A little bit surprised, but I'm with you. I think that they've trended poorly even before the Stafford injury. Although Stafford's been kind of banged up, but like, is he really going to be better in this game? So I think, you know, betting a potentially injured Stafford off of a couple week layoff is not really a typical spot that I love to get involved with a team, especially when they've been trending poorly, and especially on defense. Like, they don't have the talent, but they were playing above their weight class for a while, and now they haven't been for 3 weeks before the bye. So not a spot I'm looking to get involved with on the Rams. I'm a little surprised. I think this closes with Seattle as small favorites, but this isn't getting outside of, you know, under the 3.
Well, okay. What about Pittsburgh, Cleveland? I ask because, like, Pittsburgh is 6-3. Clark, they're 6-0 in 1-score games. They've been outgained in every game. They've lost the success rate battle in all but 1 game. They have a -26 point differential despite being 6-3. And yet Cleveland is dealing with Deshaun Watson injury. Plus, if DeJuan Jones, who didn't practice all week last week, misses again, they'll be with their 4th and 5th offensive tackle. What do you make of this line? Because I get tempted to at Cleveland at this short price. I'm higher on Cleveland than, I guess, market. But 3 times that I bet against Pittsburgh, Cleveland week 2, with the Ravens with all their drops, and last week with Green Bay, I feel gun shy. Like, I think I've made 3 good bets, and I didn't get home to the window with any of them. What's your read on this line right now?
Yeah, I think all 3 of those were good bets. So sorry about that. I understand the feeling. Like, when you keep firing, and it's like, our brains should not be psychologically impacted by the results when, you know, we know that the process is good. So, you know, my recommendation is bet your numbers. Like, they're your numbers for a reason. In this game in particular, like, I think a strong case can be made for either team at the 4, which is why I think the spread is right. The Browns are the better team, have been the better team. But the Steelers, they dirty games up, you know, like, this is when the spread is at 4, like, they slow the game down. They run the ball a lot. They make it difficult to get those big plays. They make big plays on defense. You know, typically they didn't really do that much against Green Bay, which was surprising, but you know, against teams that have issues on the offensive line, like the Browns do, like, they can turn sacks into negative plays. That's one of the things that TJ Watt does so well. And so it's a really precarious position to have a 4-point favorite in a game against the Steelers in a divisional game when you don't have a legitimate offense that can just pour points on its opponents. And that is not what the Browns are. They're a grinded out team, rely on the defense, you know, build a lead and capitalize that way. It was a little bit fluky how they won against Baltimore. So I wouldn't anticipate a repeat of that. This is going to be probably a tight game, massive game in the implications of AFC North. Not one I'm looking to get involved in right now.
I'm waiting for 2 things. I'm waiting for 3.5s because I think they'll appear. I'm also waiting on Deshaun Watson's status. I got to see what his practice looks like. Like, I know he got hurt in the ankle, but he went 14 for 14 in the second half. The one thing I'll say about the Steelers, where people say, hey, their offense has kind of moved the ball pretty well since Deontay's been back or whatever. Those defenses have nothing to compare to what Cleveland is about to bring to them. Cleveland is a legit defense, and I'm very, very intrigued by that matchup. I guess the last one we'll talk about is Thursday Night Football. Cincinnati, Baltimore. You talk about AFC North. This is AFC North weekend here. Big injuries too. Like, T. Higgins did not practice yesterday. both pass rushers, Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, didn't practice. Ronnie Stanley didn't practice, neither did Marlon Humphrey. It's like, if you can't get a pass rush against Baltimore, Cincinnati's defense is in trouble. And if Marlon Humphrey misses the game, maybe Burrow's going to have some success through the air. Right now, the line's at 3.5 plus 100. Pinnacle is shading lower than anybody there. If you want to take the Ravens, it's best price in market if you're interested in the Ravens side of this. Clark, are we going to 3? Or do you think this will be the in between, the 3.25? You'll get mixed numbers at different boards at different juice points. Is that where you see it going, or do you see some Baltimore money maybe bringing it back up to 4, depending on the injury report for the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, injury report's going to be huge, but I doubt there's enough interest in Cincinnati to get all the way to the 3 here. I mean, Baltimore's at home. They've typically played really well against the Bengals, and just this season, the Baltimore Ravens on offense and defense have been a very, very good team, whereas the Bengals have flashed on offense, but lost one of their key players, and it showed last week. Defense has been better in recent weeks, but not, they just haven't been elite this year. So I think there's enough reasons to back the Ravens here that I don't think we see a 3. I'd be shocked.
I'd be all over the 3 there. Clark, I went to bed Sunday evening. I like to find out where the lines are, make notes of like, hey, this is what I'm going to look at that looks off before I've done any of my work or any of my numbers. And I remember going to bed and saying, man, 44 as a total. I want anything 45 and under, and I want to hit the over. I think the Bengals are going to be an over team. I think their defense sucks, and I think Joe Burrow's always going to be good enough against whatever defense to give you a chance. And I didn't even get the chance. By the time I woke up and started going through my work, it was already at 46. So I guess the market's saying, forget your primetime unders. We think this game is going to go over. Any thoughts to the total? It's sitting at 46 right now at Pinnacle.
I mean, depending on injuries again, like the key players on both sides, if fully healthy, I think 46 might even be a touch high. So I think I might be on the other side of this than you, but I don't have the conviction to bet it. I just think that the Ravens defense has traditionally done really well against Burrow, and this is the best version of the Ravens defense that we've ever seen in Burrow's career. So I think, and then without T. Higgins, like that makes a big difference. They can focus and key in on Jamar Chase. So I do think it could be a bit of an ugly game, but when you have Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, like explosive plays are always on the table, and explosive plays kill an underbet just like that.
Yeah. Jason, let's see if you can pull up some futures here. Because I got a question. Clark, this is around the time where people see something in a team and they want to believe, right? We're about to make a run. Some people are seeing it in Houston. They're really starting to get on that CJ Stroud. Some people are seeing it in the Lions. They're like, wait a minute, they're going to get the 1 seed. This might be the team. I'd be curious. Joey Graybill asks predictions for the best second half of the season team. I want to expand that to Clark. Who's a team that right now you think that is primed to make a pretty good run that maybe the market isn't fully aware of or accounting for?
I mean, I know this isn't really what you're asking, but the 49ers, I don't think the market understands how much better the 49ers are than everyone else in the NFC and maybe even AFC. Like, fully healthy, this 49ers team is so good on both sides of the ball. They play football the way that it has to be played in today's NFL. If they stay healthy, like I don't know what I would make the odds exactly, but I don't think that there's, you have to deal with variance, right? They might get hurt, things like that. But what do we got for NFC champion?
Plus 230. So they're like neck and neck with Philly. But man,
I would even find some value on plus 230. Like I think to plus 200, I think is probably a fair bet on 49ers.
I want to point your eyes to a team in the AFC, and Clark, Jason, if you can pull up the Miami Dolphins schedule for a second, because I think Miami is primed for a 2 seed. Given the AFC North is gonna, I think it's gonna be a war of attrition, and I don't think Jacksonville has shown enough to justify where they are. The Dolphins, they're at home against the Raiders, they're at the Jets, at the Commanders, home against the Titans, home against the Jets, right? If we get to that point, by the time we get to Dallas, like that might be 10 wins. We could be 10-3. I think if Miami gets that 2 seed and the defense has looked a lot better, I don't know, man. South Beach might be bringing home a Super Bowl. That would be my team in the AFC because I think the Ravens boat has left, and obviously KC has left, and I think there's too many other flaws with like the Jaguars and Chargers and Bengals and Browns for me to like. I think if you think of teams that might have offense and defense, because I think you need both aspects playing well in the playoffs, the Dolphins defense has been trending up. So not a homer, but I like the Dolphins and I like the 49ers. I want to see the battle of master and protege for sure.
Yeah, I don't know that I buy them to go that deep, but I mean, if their defense gets better, that makes a massive difference. Obviously, their offense is kind of weird because like it's so explosive and its metrics are so good, but the splits between when they play really good teams and really bad teams is a little bit concerning for me. I don't think it's just noise. I mean, it's a little bit of noise, but I don't think it's just noise. So, when you're talking about the playoffs, it's like a run of really good teams. So they would have to not only get off the schneid against really good teams, but consistently do that for 3 or 4 games. And that's going to be real tough.
Follow me, Clark. 2 seed, you're at home. You play Cleveland or Cincy, whoever gets in at 7. You get a win there. Then now you gotta play the Ravens or Jaguars. At least you're at home. You get a win there. You never know from there, brother.
The problem is, even as a 2 seed, the 7th seed in the AFC is going to be a very good team, just the way that it's shaping up. So, like in a year, like a couple years ago, Chiefs were 2 seed and they played against the Steelers in round 1, and it was like a bye week, right? Like that's not happening this year. So, they might need to really, really hit their peak and then stay there. So, I mean, it could happen. Everything's priced into the odds, right? But my dark horse to the AFC right now would actually be the Bills. I think that there's a chance that they can sneak in as a 7 seed. I think there's also a chance they can still win the division if the Dolphins do stumble. And they're the kind of team that if they make it to the playoffs, then who cares what happened? Who cares about the variance? Who cares about the turnovers? Like all you got to do is put together, solid games in the playoffs, and they have what it takes. So they'd be a team I'd be looking at.
They also still have like a plus 80 point differential. This isn't a bad team. They're losing tight games. And when they're really good, they're really good. So again, I wouldn't write off the Bills. I only joke in jest about the Dolphins. I'm with you with the 49ers. That I 3 points against the Jaguars. I wish I got 2.5. I was happy to grab 3 though. I really like the 49ers in that spot. For those of us who didn't downgrade them in that 3-game stretch, we were rewarded for our patience because healthy, the San Fran team is a whole house, and I can't wait till they play San Fran in a high leverage game. Clark, thank you so much for your time, man. As always, learned a lot and enjoyed myself here on the Tuesday. And like everybody who participates in the chat, you guys are actually the real MVPs because without an audience, I watched wrestling during the pandemic, Clark. It looks like organized gymnastics when you don't have a crowd cheering, and the audience makes so much a big role, the atmosphere. So thank you to everybody. Thanks to Clark. Thanks to producer Jason. Thanks to the audience. As a reminder, tomorrow, Forward Progress, 2 p.m., Rob Pizzola, Eric Eager, Suma, and Hitman giving you their best bets and breaking down games from a betting perspective. Drop us a like before you bounce. Until next time.